Hi there, welcome back to the Alex Easterling missing person criminal disappearance case. Today, I wanted to do a direct comparison and analysis with two different photos of a vehicle of interest, and it's also a response video to Ashley Martin, the mother of the missing person Alex Easterling. Now, I do want to provide a bit of a brief backstory to how I'm in this situation and why I'm doing it and how it has been applied in the past. I just want to give a bit of backstory there. I also want to acknowledge I am jumping in at the deep end with this case, and I also understand from the perspective of people on my channel who may not be familiar with this case, it might seem very confusing, but it's all under control. As for additional reference, as always said, make sure to check out Kaylee's channel and even Ashley Martin, because she's been active in the community tab section. Okay, so some people could flip it back and say, well, why are you doing this now when you've been very, very busy with the Dylan Rounds case and the Kenny Veach case? I've been juggling a lot recently. The reason why I'm specifically doing this video is because I'm in a position where I can do it and I can apply it. I have extensive experience with these analysis type of videos, so I feel like I can do it and I can do a fair comparison too and share with you my thoughts. At the end of the day, Ashley Martin did a community post on her channel reaching out to just general public for their point of view, their perspective on the matter. The vehicle, or a vehicle, which could or may not match with a photo of another vehicle. Is it the same thing or is it two separate ones? And obviously tied within the case in some way or another. And maybe with the CCTV footage, because I think CCTV footage, it may have depicted that particular vehicle, which may or may not match the description of another vehicle from a certain angle. There's a lot of little factors and elements to include in this, right? And there's some key factors as to why people may doubt themselves and why people may be kind of unsure, uncertain, right? I have enhanced one of the photos to make it a bit clearer, a bit sharper. There'll be some factors you can't quite control, but it'll be fully explained as we do go along. Now, to link back to why I'm doing this analysis with these photos is because, as the backstory goes, I have done stuff similar to this in the past. It might have not always been with vehicles, but it was with objects. It was with a crystal skull from a mystery. It was with like a building of some sort. Surveillance footage. I have analysed surveillance footage in the past when it came to possible evidence to suggest a missing person known as Kenny Veach in 2014 was still alive in 2018 and onwards. So it's like putting them side by side. And even with the cave videos I've done of an M-shaped cave, comparing it with another one, enhancing the imagery, quality, the sharpness, the brightness, the shadows, making it a bit lighter in some areas, just to try and get that correct contrast without completely impacting the true colour of it, just to make it stand out more. Where it might be darker in areas, it could highlight the cracks and gaps in a rock or in a wall, the face of it. And it could show the true depth of it. Or if you're trying to look into an area where it's very dark, you can't quite see it, really up the brightness and enhance it that way, and then you can see whether it goes in further or if it hits a rock wall and it's shallow. So I've done quite a lot of that, quite a few side-by-side comparisons. So for people that normally do watch these videos, okay, maybe the backstory, the story itself to the case might not be familiar with, but in terms of the procedure of how one does things, you probably still find it interesting, similar how to what I've done in the past, right? So the aim of today is me doing an analysis and comparison of two photos, whether it's the same vehicle or not, and me giving my thoughts on the matter, as well as trying to provide a bit of more clarity to the photos themselves and additional factors as to why one may appear different to the other, okay? But before we get into my side of the case, the element, let's just see what other people have had to say in recent time. Let's head on over to Ashley Martin's page on YouTube to see other people's responses and see if that can be put into perspective as of today. Right, so here we are on Ashley Martin's YouTube page, community tab section, and just for a bit of backstory. We've got some CCTV footage here, but like a screenshot of that available on her channel, Ashley Martin's page, the actual video and analysed by Kaylee. But just as a brief reference point, to be talking about a vehicle caught on camera, I believe it is noted on here. I'm not sure if people can see because it does match the same angle and everything. So as I said, the aim of today is trying to compare two photos of a vehicle, whether it's the same or not. And one of the photos, at least, I guess, is to do with this screenshot here, in which in the background, right-hand side, closer to the trees and that, I think, fence, you got the side profile of a car illuminated by a very bright light, which, you know, can play a factor in have poor visibility and a bit of a blinding sense when you're trying to look at the key details, and that will definitely play a key role later on in this video, so take that into consideration, okay, and the angling too. If we scroll down a bit more, here are the two key photos. So I believe this photo here is from the screenshot CCTV footage of what you see on this image back in the background on the right hand side, that car side profile, okay, just a reference point there. So that's why it does appear quite blurry, because it's zoomed in from the camera footage, right? So it's to be expected, and taking in mind the brightness, the lighting, because it's not morning time, is it? It's dark. Was that 100 hours or so? Yeah. But this photo from that CCTV footage of the property, right, the area, is being compared to this car here. Is it the same one? Well, before I give you my thoughts, let's see what people have had to say, okay? Do people agree or disagree? So, first of all, you have IYQ2. I remember this person back in the Dylan Rounds case. So, they say here, I converted this to a black and white. The rims on the colour photo has large gaps in the rims. It's easier to tell if you make it a black and white. The black and white photo seems to have more gaps that are smaller. Therefore, I personally don't believe it's the same vehicle, in my opinion. JD Jenny says, that's a good thing to do, add different filters to see it through other lenses. Whilst yes, it's good to change the filters, you got to be careful, right? When you do preset default filters and you don't customize, it can change the whole color of the photo. Sometimes it doesn't matter, other times it does, because back when I was comparing two crystal skulls, supposedly the same one from the mine shaft, one may have appeared more purple, the other one appeared more pale, but still a bit of a purplish tint. Maybe it was the angle, maybe it was the lighting, how it was being casted onto it from the light around. So by trying to enhance those images to make it as comparable as possible, such as the camera angle and all of that, I didn't want to change the saturation, the tint, the colouring too much, besides the contrast and the shadowing, just to make it more defined. There's a difference between enhancing a photo to make it more defined, crisp and clear, and then there's another thing such as altering the colour of it, which then makes it unnatural and not a fair comparison. In this case situation, it's not so much comparing the colour of the car with one another in terms of the photos, it's more so looking at the details of the car. Is it the same make, the same brand, the same type? Is it literally the same car? So, as for colouring, doesn't matter as much here, but in a general principle, you should always be careful when it comes to altering stuff, right? Moving on, we got some saying, looks like a Nissan in both. You can see, can you play when Alex walks the fence and that car drives, please? Ashley says, posted the video on my page, let me know if you can't find it. It's absolutely a Nissan Maxima, okay? Well, there we go. I do have like a stock photo, default photo of a Nissan Maxima if we need to use for comparison today. I've actually got two photos of a Nissan Maxima. I don't know the years of them, whether it's the same exact type, but it's to take in mind the wheel trim, right? Because there's a bit of conflict there with what other people think. Some says it's the exact same car, so believes Nissan Maxima, same one for both photos. Salty Pancakes responds saying wrong in capital letters. What does other people say? Raven Gypsy, definitely looks like it. Cluckers, looks like the same vehicle to me. The rims do it for me too, Kaylee. Hotspot, Looks the same to me. Have you heard anything on the server warrant for the missing video? Ashley says, long answer. I'll be able to give details in a bit. Laura saying, in my opinion, it's the same car. Every detail is in the same spot as on both. True crime, Kaylee. Even the rims. Rick kind of looks like it. American Honey, my opinion, it's the same. Stumpy says, first car is a Kia Optima around 2018. Second car doesn't appear to have the same lines. But then he changed his mind. So he says, consistent. Right, okay. Salty Pancakes says, 98% of this chat is wrong and only 2% correct. I see the problem now. This is not the same car and the rims. Lol, you have to be a certain kind of slow to think those are the same rims. The curve on the back side window tells you everything. So if anybody wondering who this individual is, Salty Pancakes originated from the Dylan Rounds case. Didn't always go to plan there. Okay, short story. True Crime responds back saying, are you some kind of expert now? She asked for people to give their opinions. I didn't see her ask for criticism to come over for being a jerk. You were so disrespectful, shaking my head. Grow up, Mike. Seriously, there's a time and place, and right here, right now, this post obviously is not appropriate. Salty Pancake says, are you some kind of stalker? Weirdo? True Crime, bless your heart. Salty Pancakes, save your blessings for yourself. You need it. True Crime, oh, thank you so much. Hair flip. So this is just documenting it as we go along, just so you know who is who and where people originate from, just for future references, okay? It's all about being prepared and knowing what to expect from certain individuals out there. Grizzle says, not the same. Ashley says, thanks for the input. What details do you see that makes you say it's not the same? I'm no car expert, so maybe I missed something. See, this is the thing. It's okay saying it is the same or it's not the same or there's details that match, but we need side-by-side photo comparisons. We need an in-depth analysis, and that's what I'm going to try and do today, okay? Whether it falls in line with what people are saying here or not, that can be a different discussion. Some says, anyway, you still have communication with Repo Man. He may be able to help. And then Ash says, I need to try and contact him in some way. Okay, so with that all being said and done, we've looked at the comments here. It seems like maybe the majority think that it is the same vehicle, and a couple say it's not. Well, let me give you my opinion right now with the photos. So here we are with the side-by-side comparisons. Don't worry, I do have it from different perspectives. We got the front end side profile of the cars, the two photos to compare, and then we got the rear end as well, and then we'll look at the separate photos one by one. I just wanted to provide to you a variety of comparisons side by side and then from one photo to another, because I think it probably does it more justice when you're looking at a singular photo and then swiping onto the next photo, but a bit more enhanced at the time. But there's no harm in doing a side-by-side comparison too, because that's what I'm known to do in general, right? Take in mind, you can't fit it all onto one screen when it comes to two full-length cars from the side, right? So, the one on the right appears to be from the CCTV footage. The one on the left is, I'm not sure if it's in the same area, maybe a different place, different time, I guess, of course, because one's nighttime on the right, and then the one on the left is more morning time because it's lighter and brighter. So the photo on the left, I didn't really need to enhance because it's kind of clear enough. As for the colouring of it on the left, I can't quite come to a definitive answer there, but I'm sure maybe Ashley will know at least the photo on the left. I mean, it comes off maybe grey or white, but as I said, when it comes to the colour of it, it's not as important today. It's just the overall details of the side profile of the vehicles. It's good that it's both from the side. That's something, at least. There's a bit more to look at with what we've got here. But the most important two factors to take in mind, which can obscure one's perception on the images, more so the one on the right. Because it's nighttime, because there's a very bright camera, not bright camera, but very bright light nearby, it's kind of shining, reflecting onto the vehicle itself. And, you know, the angle, I think it was with this one. So basically what I tried doing, I tried angling, you know, the right-hand side photo at a slight angle to match the photo on the left. If you go in the same direction and same angle, it can make it a little bit easier to compare with one another. When you've got them at different angles though, it's harder to compare and match up, right? Because do you know, like when you get, what do you call it, illusions, how one thing could appear longer than the other, or how it can end up looking more narrow in the distance compared to how it does up close, like train tracks. A certain angle, it can distort it. It can make it harder to perceive and compare, and maybe to say, oh, that is the same as that, but because of the angle, because of the lighting, it makes it harder to come to that, conclusion, right? So the lighting on the right is a problem, but it is what it is. It's time, the moment, it being near to a bright light, and obviously the angle of it, the angle of the camera, the angle of the way the vehicle is. It's just working with what you've got, okay? So I just wanted to add those factors in to explain as to why it's a bit more difficult to compare, and maybe to explain why some people may question whether it is the same thing or not, okay? So at least from looking at it up close, the front end side of the vehicle, I think one thing that may stand out are the wheel trims, right? You're looking at that one, it kind of varies, right? I've seen these wheel trims before in real life, even in this country. In some areas you got a wider gap, but then next to it is a more narrow triangular gap, and then next to it is a much wider one, then a less wide one, then it's wider, then less wide, then it's wider, then less wide, and then it's wider. So it's big, small, big, small. You compare it to this one, take in mind it is blurry, right? As you can see here, there's not a hole or a gap all the way around. Does that mean to say there's no hole? No, there is a hole. It's just because of the angling of the camera, the way the vehicle is angled, and the way the light is, the brightness of it, and the way it's casted. Think of shadows, how shadows can be casted by the light from a certain angle. You get the shadowing on the ground or up the side of a wall, and depending on the angle of it, sometimes it can make the shadow look bigger than the actual object. Kind of like, if you got your hand and then you make a shadow out of your hand, the shadow of the hand can look significantly bigger than your actual hand can, the way it's casted, the way the light is, the angling. It comes all down to that psychological aspect, the visual aspect of it. So when you compare that trim or rim with this one, it does look somewhat different, right? There we go, side by side. There appears to be less gaps on the right image than on the left, but what about the width of it? I think that's what a couple of people were saying, that the width not as big, smaller all the way around, a bit more consistent compared to the one on the left, which is a wide gap, then a small gap, then a wide gap, then a small gap. But if the image can show up as if it's only got half of a like holes in the rim, even though it goes all the way around, it's just the colouring, the lighting, and the angle of it which kind of obstructs it, then it could also mean that the additional obstruction is the width and gap within those trims, the rim, I should say. So if you look at it quick, you probably say it's two separate wheel rims, two separate ones, so it must mean the car's completely different too. I mean, you can have it at times where, and it's just to throw out there, okay, if people want to agree, reinforce, or go against it, you could have two different, cars, same brand, same make, same type, but one has different wheels, trims compared to the other. So technically it means two separate vehicles, but they still have similarities such as the brand and make. The only thing that I would say, as for the one on the right with the property, which what described nearby, there was like a scrapyard where multiple cars were or so. Is there any cars, vehicles on the right hand side image of that area? Is there any other vehicles on that property which are the same brand and make? That's the only question I would put out there. If not, then it may reinforce back to what we're dealing with here, okay? But when I look at it up close, those gaps aren't exactly consistent. Like, okay, you might have a big gap there, and then there's nothing in between. Why is that? Then you got another big gap there, but then there is something in between, a much smaller black gap, and then there's a big gap there. Then it's a bit distorted, looks a bit smaller. Then it's not quite visible there, but you can still see some kind of like black marking. And then past that point, it's very light coloured, but there will still be a hole within that rim as it goes all the way around. As for the shaping and size of these gaps within the rims, one's big, the other one's small, then it's big, then it's small, then it's big, then it's small, then it's big, you can still see the black marking there, then it's probably small, and then it's big, and then it's small. Do you get what I'm saying? Does that match up with the pattern of what we saw on the right? Well, big, small, big, small, big, small, big. Where are we looking here? Big, small, big, small, big, small, big. That matches up. In terms of the pattern, the rhythm of it, big, small, big, small, big. Big, small, big, small, big. Big, small, big, small, big. And what I mean is by big is the big gap in between the rim, followed by a smaller gap in the rim, followed by a big gap in the rim, followed by a smaller gap in the rim, right? Take in mind, when it comes to gaps and cracks, where it could have a hole in it, and you can look right through and you shine the light right through, yeah, maybe if you got the light up close, you'd be able to see through. But from a distance, right, like a bigger hole probably will be more visible from like distance, but a small hole, and you're looking at it from distance, it might not even be illuminated, it might not even show up, kind of like what we see here. And because of the angle of it, because of the way the lighting is, because of the way the shadows are casted, you're not going to get to see the full true definition and clarity of the holes, whether one's big or small. But with at least the gaps, what we've got on here, which show up in black, meaning there's a hole which goes through the rim in those gaps and areas, it does follow the pattern of big, small, big, exactly like the one here, okay? As said, when you look at it quick, the shaping of it and the width of it, it does look different, but then you've got to take in mind the angle, the lighting, how shadows are casted. It's easier to see a bigger hole than it is to see a smaller hole from distance, okay, with the lighting and stuff. So, yeah. Now, in terms of the, what would you call it, like, just above the wheel, how it goes up and down, that upside down U shape where the wheel slots into, up top, like the bumper, the overall bodywork of it, okay? It seems quite symmetrical on both sides. It goes up and down. It's like a bridge almost, an upside down U. I'd say it looks the same there. It's quite symmetrical. Okay, so that seems to match up there as that one does. Any other factors to take in mind? I mean, there's some lines. I don't know if you can see. It's like a ridge, a line towards the bottom of the bodywork of the car, low down near to the wheel, which goes across like a line. Seems to be like two lines possibly. That's where you see the black mark. We're not talking about that black line that's underneath the vehicle. I believe that's the kind of like the shadow casted, okay, underneath the dark bit. But these lighter marks here, which you can kind of see two lines running in parallel to one another. I mean, it probably will be hard for people to see, but I can see it there. Do you know that width there, that bit of light mark goes all the way across? You can see the detail, the lines, okay? It's probably more of a visual look for the car, the bodywork, that's all it is for. But I do see the line, but it does run across, and the width, the thickness of it, where you see where it's a bit highlighted there because of the lighting, okay, the way the photo is taken, the angle. You take that in mind, the width of it and how it goes from left to right across the side of the car is similar to that black line, what you see here, which is casted by like a shadow and lighting. So it's got the detail there in terms of the lower bodywork. As for the, do you call it the rim? The rim and the trim? I get mixed up between the two words. Yeah, I'd say the similarities there, for sure. As for the mirror, which is kind of hard to see, it's black. That appears black as well, so that seems the same. As for the window, it seems to follow the same kind of like shaping of it. It doesn't do it justice in this photo, but don't worry, I will get the separate photos up to fit it into proportion with one another, okay? But let's look at the rear end. Now, you might see it at a bit of an angle, this. I tried angling it so I could possibly compare, and it wasn't that easy to do, because the one on the left is how do you describe it? Do you like if you were giving coordinates north, east, south, west? Both are faced, just from my perspective at least, okay? Just take that into mind. From my perspective, they're both facing east, but the one on the left seems to be facing, the one on the right seems to be facing a bit more kind of like northeast. Take in mind, the one on the left I had to try and angle. That's why it's at an angle to match up with the one on the right. Because when they're straight, the images, they're pointing in slightly different directions. So that's why it's harder. So once again, as for the rims, big, small, big, the angling of it, the way the shadows are casted. I mean, you could be really critical and say, well, that rim doesn't even look like the same as the front rim. Now, okay, at times you can have different ones, right? They're not always matching, but just to put into perspective, right? It's just the lighting, because look at the side body of the car. There'll probably be more definition and profiles on it, but it's just blinded by the sheer brightness of the light in the courtyard, right? So that's why things aren't shown up as clearly as they are on the left, right? Just take in mind, the one on the left is more natural lighting. The one on the right is, do you call it artificial or maybe not? But the one on the right is more intensified because an actual light is present, an actual source of light. But what can we work with here? The window, bit awkward to see, but the way it comes off at the back, it's kind of like a triangle in a sense. This one, bit of a triangle. What do you call it? The rim of the outline of the window, it's like a straight line, but then it goes up like a curve, doesn't it? That black line under the window, it goes up at a curve. Does that match up with the one here? It does a little bit. It actually does, because it does part ways with this black line that goes across to the back of the lights of the car, okay? So once again, I don't know if you can see, but there's like a thin black line which is just under this black rim of the outline of the window. This black line, you follow it back and it comes to the rear end of the vehicle. Is it more for definition, the shaping of it, the bodywork? Maybe, but that line, when you look at it zoomed out, it's more clearer. The one on the right, it's like a pure black line, as you see. Can you see that black line? That seems to match up with the line here, what you see. Middle of the screen goes all the way across, okay? So I'd say that. As for the door handles, it's not possible to compare because, yeah, you can make out some door handles there, the back one, passenger, the driver's one. But I said on the right, because of the sheer brightness, it kind of just blinds it, blows out the park, so you can't see certain details, right? So, as said, lighting plays a huge factor within it all. Now, as for the back end of the bodywork, just the outline of where the wheel goes, once again, it does seem like a U shape, but maybe it's a bit wider on the right hand side, the way it comes down. That seems to tie in line. There seems to be like a bit more definition of it as well, which doesn't quite show, but then again, I can see some lines of it. You see the gap there between the wheel and the bodywork. It's a very thin gap, right? We look here. It's pretty much a thin gap centered the screen from where the tyre meets with the back end of the bodywork. So, as for the gap up top, it's a bit wider there. That's where you see the blackness. You can see the gap there too. So I'd say that matches there at least. Where you see that red light, the glow, it's like kind of like on the back, but then reaching around the side kind of, that's where the light is. And as you see with this one, these lights tend to, well, it looks like, maybe it's just the angle, they're kind of on the back, but they come around the side as well. So that's probably why you see the brightness there too, the redness. Huh, interesting. As for the pure rear end of it, you can't compare because, well, as you can see the rear end more there on the back, including the license plate, which isn't clearly visible. this vehicle is more side on, hence why you can't see the back of it. So you can't do a true comparison there. That's why when you're looking at certain angles and measurements, then it might not come up matching the same. That's just because the vehicle's at a different angle compared to how it was taken a different day or a different time, right? So it can still be the same vehicle, but because it's at a different angle and different lighting and different timing and the way the shadows are casted, it makes it appear as if it's a completely different vehicle, okay? Now, moving on. This was what, a Nissan Maxima. It might not be the correct model. This might be newer or it could be older. I'm not an expert on cars, literally, okay? But this was the name mentioned or given by Ashley Martin, so I just wanted to type it in online to see what one would look like, okay? I mean, already, boom, there we go. I don't know if you can see it, but do you know that shiny black finish going across? Just above maybe where maybe you could put your foot on to climb into the vehicle. You can see that like black shiny line going all the way from rim or wheel trim to wheel trim. Just like how you do here, that one, as it goes left, right, that black line. Do you remember what I was saying? And you see the definition there. And that black bit right at the bottom is probably that part where you put your foot on to get into the vehicle, just like how you see there, that darker black line, which looks like it goes underneath the vehicle, but not quite because there's a gap still. But just above it, there appears to be like, you call it a footwell, just something what you kind of like step on. It's not as prominent on here, but it is with SUVs. So you've got a black shiny finish which goes from left to right, and then just underneath it, there's a bit that sticks out which you could probably put your foot on to get in. And that seems to match up with these two images here with that prominent line going across the side at the bottom of it, like that one. So there are similarities there. Boom, there we go, there we go. Do you know the rear end light? Do you see how it's on the back, but it kind of reaches around the side? That matches up with kind of like that one, the way it reaches around the side, doesn't it? The shaping of it. Get off. And this one possibly, it's hard to see because of the pure brightness and blurriness of it, but possibility of it. The line of it, from this angle, you can see the line more. It's just like sticks out more the rear end on the sides. It kind of pops out a bit. But you see that like line, the shaping of it. There's a line there as well as it goes across. Take in mind, this could be a different year model to the two photos what we see here, right? But I just found any Nissan Maxima online. So it's just like a rough guideline to put into perspective, right? Let's just see. Angling of it. So this one seems to go up and down like how that one does. That silver finish, and it goes up and down like a triangular point. I said these are all different angles, so you've got to take that into mind. Does that go up and down? It's too blurry to tell and the wrong angle to determine that. Do we have anything else? Not really. The windows, that one seems to have a bit of a frame at the back of it, and that's different to these two photos. As I said, it might just be the year, the model. Get off. I hate when you tap it and it doesn't respond. Now, this one, the only reason why I wanted to get this one up is because, do you like when we're talking about rims? Do you like that one where it's big, small, but longer, big, smaller, just like, you know, that wheel trim? It's that with this vehicle, still being a Nissan, whatever you call it, I forgot what it's called, Maxima or something. On this version of the car, the trims, I don't know, maybe it looks smaller, right? They don't look as big, the gaps, but then again, it could be the angling of it. When you see it from the side-on profile or a bit more side-on, you can see where it's wider and then slimmer, then wider, then slimmer in terms of the width and the gap between each part of the trim, the rim. But from this angle, it makes it seem like it's all the same, like all equal, but it's not. Some appear wider, the gaps, and then the next one is not as wide. So it does come down to the angling, how it can impact one's perception, like an optical illusion, okay? Now, This is the photo what we were comparing before to this one, right? I just wanted to put into perspective how they look, you know, when standing alone to one another, how they compare or how they contrast. The wheel trims, I understand that about the lighting and, you know, how it shows up and how some bits might be blurred, blinded out just because of the lighting and the angling and the way the shadows are casted. Just like how you see shadows on the side of this car because of the vegetation nearby, plants, trees and stuff, okay? But yeah, this one here is the one that I enhanced, which made the windows a bit darker, okay? I mean, as for editing it any more, I mean, I can give you an example of it. This is like all on the spot and raw. I might as well do it in one whole go, this, if possible. See what I mean? It starts truly changing the colour of it, and I don't think it does much good to it. I mean, that one gives it a bit more colour, but do you really want to be manipulating the colour? What else do we have here? Exposure. That's too much. Make it a bit darker. As I said, this is the stuff what I used to do in the past. I mean, depending on how you change the colour of it, if you look down at the side body, just underneath the door, in between the two wheels, lower down, you can see that clear, distinct line going all the way down and across, just like how you do with the other photo. Okay, you can increase it a little bit more so you see the trims. But you see how it doesn't really make too much difference. So like the way I had it initially, it was clear enough. Black point, not too much. Vibrancy, warmth, we don't want tint, we don't want sharpness. That's good, but I already made it sharp enough. You make it too sharp, it becomes very grainy. But you can make the outline of it probably a bit better. Definition. See, the definition can make the, you know, what do you call it? The dips in a car where it goes in slightly. Does that make sense? Or where there's holes, it can make it a bit more defined. The gaps in between the wheel trims and the bodywork, the rims, the outline casted by the windows. Yeah. This might be over-enhanced now, okay? But I can always revert it back, don't worry. I just wanted to compare. And I think, you know, the more I look at it, the more it does seem to compare. Right. So my conclusion to the two photos would be there appears to be more similarities than differences between the two photos, which would make me think more than likely that there's a higher chance that those two photos are in fact of the same vehicle, the same car. Okay. Now, as for the significance behind that, what would it mean? What would be the significance if that there's a high chance that it's the same vehicle in those two photos? I don't know at this moment, just because I've got my hands very full with other cases and stuff, but as for doing this comparison and analysis, hopefully it's helped. If people want to explain the significance behind, you know, if these two vehicles are in fact, well, these two photos are in fact of the same vehicle, what does that mean? What would be the significance behind it? If you want to explain, leave it down below for a bit of clarity. It might help other people, but I just wanted to do this video because I felt it could help, and because I've got experience with doing this type of stuff in the past, I thought I could apply it here as well, right? Because at the end of the day, it's compared this with that. Is it the same thing? Well, let's enhance, let's zoom in, let's compare, let's contrast. I've done it so long now. With that experience, it makes it a little bit more easier to do, even if you don't know the full story, even if you don't know the whole backstory. At the end of the day, hopefully the video helped. And in addition, because I know it's always good other people giving their opinions and what they think and what they've seen, it's always nice to present it in a visual format as well, with photos and comparisons. And I feel like that's what I've done today. So all in all, let me know down below what you think as the viewer. And as for the key people in this case or so, let me know your thoughts on this video. Was it explained clear enough? Just, I should have said in advance, but this is more looking back retrospectively. Apologies if I can't come out with the correct descriptions of a car, you know, the little details or what that bit is on a car or what that is. I'm not going to know, okay? Because I just don't. But in terms of what one can see, hopefully it was described clear enough or so. I think ultimately the key points to take away from this when looking at those two photos is angling and lighting is everything. If you slightly change the angle and the lighting of, if you was, let me just use a rough example, okay? If you were showing muscle on your body and you wanted it to look as defined as possible, to look as big as possible, you need that additional lighting in the correct area, posing in the correct way, correct angle to get all that definition, but also the shadows in, where it goes in a bit, like with the abs, really darker, make, the muscles stand out more, the definition of it. Whereas if you just stood face onto the camera with no additional lighting, natural lighting, it's not going to look as good. It'll become more natural and more natural lighting, but it just doesn't look as good. But if you put that side by side with natural lighting and a person stood there flexing compared to another person flexing with better lighting, a better angle, better shadowing and stuff, and the way it reflects, yeah, it'd be a night and day difference, right? One minute you could say, wow, that person's really muscular, and then you look at the normal photo and you think, can't be the same person. This must be before and after or something, between years apart. But it's taken at the same time. It's just manipulations, right? That's what can alter perception. With this instance, in this case, the Alex Easterling one, it's not intentional manipulation. It's just the material, the angling, and the way the camera was at that point, at that time, and how that photo was taken or screenshotted. It is what it is, but you can still work with what you have. So that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Still need to get the Dylan Round stuff done and some other bits and bobs along the way. I want to be able to have a clear mind, okay? So thanks for watching. Hopefully it helped, and leave your comments down below.